Hey there, and welcome back to our study series, Attitude Adjustment, where we're taking this time to go through and we're looking at the Beatitudes of Jesus found in Matthew chapter 5. I pray that you have been enjoying this series and that you are taking full advantage of this opportunity that you have to make some tweaks, maybe make some changes or some adjustments to those areas of your own life that might need it in order for us to take on the attitude of Christ. As we've been going through, we've been looking at these Beatitudes, and in this study, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time today, but our focus for today is on an attitude that we all need to have. The need to be pure. And you might say, well, what exactly does it mean to be pure? Well, for that answer, we need to first take a look at what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 8. Verse 8 says this, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Now, blessed are the pure in heart. Now, right away, you might be saying, oh boy. You might be aware that there are other places in Scripture, other places in the Bible, such as in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9, which tell us that our heart is deceitful above all things, and no one can understand it. With this in mind, you might ask, John, how can I be pure in heart, as Jesus says, when my heart is so deceitful and it can't be trusted? You might say, well, if it's the pure in heart that are going to see God, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm not going to be able to see God since I have such a deceitful heart? Well, to that I would first say, calm down. No, we might not always have a pure heart. But I think what Jesus is saying here is that you and I must have an attitude that seeks to have a daily pursuit of a pure heart. Now, I've been going through and I've been studying the book of Jeremiah lately. And in fact, in Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 13, the prophet said this. He said, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns, that can hold no water." You can read more in Jeremiah on your own to find out what that second evil that was committed was. But I want to talk about this idea of broken water cisterns. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a busted or a broken water well before, but this is the idea that we're talking about. This is exactly what Jeremiah was writing about. During my time in the Middle East, I have had the opportunity to climb down into a water cistern, similar to the type that Jeremiah describes here. And at the bottom of that cistern, I was able to see that if the walls or the floor of the cistern are broken, the water is not able to be contained. The water leaches out into the surrounding soil, and it becomes of no real use to the person that tries to draw anything up out of it. And I think that this is what Jesus is trying to say here in Matthew chapter 5. I think he's trying to say this. I think he's trying to say, I am the spring, or I am the source of living water that you need. And you've been busy exchanging this source of living water for a broken cistern. I think that this blessed invitation that we have here in verse 8, that only the pure in heart are able to see God, I think it means just that we must pursue continuously or actively go to the source of purity. We must go to the source of living water if we ever hope to see God. It's this daily process that as we continue going to God, He will make our heart more and more pure. We will end up being able to see more of Him. The point that I think we need to see is this. Even if we are trying to work, even if we are trying hard to do for God, if we aren't always going back to Him and saying, God, help me to do your will. God, show me what you would have me to do. God, reveal your heart to me. I think if we're not constantly doing this, we are really just working from a broken cistern or a busted well. Yeah, I think that we should be doing this, but Jesus said we should be doing these things. We should be doing things for God, but it has to be proportionate to our being with God. Is He the source that you draw life-giving water from? Or have you been drawing water from your own places, maybe? Is He able to continuously fill your buckets? Is He able to continuously fill your heart with more purity? Or are you trying to work alone from a dry and an empty well? You see, if we are not doing life with God, I think we have no business trying to do anything for God. When we are not operating from a pure heart, when we are not drawing pure waters from God, who is the source, that's when we find ourselves operating with broken lives. That's when we are operating with broken hearts. That's when we begin drawing empty buckets from broken wells. I hope that you allow Matthew chapter 5 and verse 8 to really be an invitation to you. An invitation to being truly happy. An invitation for you to cut yourself out of the picture for just a little bit and to just carve out some time each day to be alone with God. An invitation to allow Him to fill your heart with purity as you seek His face and allow Him to share His pure heart with you. How do we have a pure heart? We have to come and sit at the feet of Jesus. We have to spend time with Him, because the more time that we spend with Him, the more we begin to adjust our attitudes to be like Him. Now, that's all I've got for today. So until next time, be pure in your hearts and be blessed.